What's up, everybody? Brothers, sisters, psychonauts, and seekers of truth. It is Ananka, and welcome to my bazaar. Today I have a Peyote trip report for you. The title of this trip report is Induced Transcendence, and was submitted to Earwid in 2018 by the user Medicine Man. He was 25 at the time of this trip, and no previous drug experience is given. With all that being said, let our story begin. I was raised Southern Baptist. I have been in a place of death 4 times in my life. Situations I should have died in, but yet survived. Accident or injury. I entered into this self-guided meditation with the use of peyote, with the notion to forget anything that I have been taught aforehand. My mind was open to anything and everything, so as I would be able to make the best decision for my spirit as a whole. On a journey to cure my chronic migraines, PTSD, anxiety, and insomnia on a more holistic level. During the meditation, this report was prepared. The afterthought after 6 hours of rest and a clean mind follows. 11.7 grams dried peyote placed into roughly 40 capsules and consumed at 2 p.m. End of major visual aids 11:30 p.m. The first few hours were negligible. Body temperature was high and I was clammy and sweating quite profusely. By 4 p.m. I was preparing for my normal meditation practices. No answers in my head. I suddenly realized that the difference between man and men was we think. So I pulled a piece of paper in front of me on the floor and wrote the first thing that came to mind. Bathsheba. I heard her name spoken a few times inside of my head. At this point, I started to receive visual aids. I never saw Bathsheba, yet I felt her lustrous presence. She was sexy, and I've never even seen her face. I asked her a question. How do I increase my profits? The answer is in the hilt, was an automatic response. Inside of my mind was a beautiful sword, curved at the top. On the flat of the blade, I could see past the weapon itself and see an image in the blade. I had found my answer. I thanked Bathsheba for her time, as she spun the sword seductively between her fingertips. Still no face, no body, just mere essence. As I turned to leave the room, feeling oddly satisfied and 100% reassured with myself and my new plans, however extremely dissatisfied with not being able to even help myself imagine a manifestation of energy, I saw myself in the mirror. This meditation became stage number 2. With my nose pressed against the clean glass, I now stared into the eyes of a man, inches back from the glass on his side. I found myself observing myself, not as myself. I became increasingly attractive, sexy, powerful. I found myself so attracted to me that I physically wanted for myself. I began lusting after myself. At this point, my wife knocked and came in the room. I immediately was overwhelmed with jealousy. I was angry at her for interrupting this only time I had with her. The winds were shifting outside, which was the reason for the intrusion. As I came outside to admire another possible freak storm, I saw Bathsheba's jealousy transform into a beautiful storm cell, producing a massive funnel cloud sideways of the main branch of clouds. It appeared prominent enough that everyone in the family, me being the only one on peyote, could see it and were taking pictures. Out of this storm fell hail. One hail in particular landed directly in the palm of my hand and then bounced to the ground. I picked it up and saw a good-sized, beautiful piece of hail, enveloped in a larger piece. I placed this piece into my hand after pictures and show and tell. The taste was out of this world amazing. Granting, I had been fasting since consumption. However, the burst of water when it melted quenched my thirst until midnight. It was the most special gift I have received. As I watched the storm, it was clearly apparent to me that this storm was a direct action of jealousy. Not only did my old friend Bathsheba help guide me, she wanted me for herself. I sat outside enjoying the jealousy of this spirit when I began to see tiny things in the air. If the background was right, and you had the ability to see beyond what you are seeing, this is where you will find this life. Millions of tiny bubbles of light. Naturally, I became euphoric and giggly. My first time in my life seeing something that isn't there, which I now know is always there. After initial glance, I was able to see them easier and easier if I looked at them correctly. Once they became apparent all around me, I noticed they were not randomly moving around. What I thought was chaos of particles were the very fibers of life itself. It takes tens of thousands of millions of these bubbles to make up one atom, so I have read. These bubbles were in a pattern, grouped together, and they were pulsing. Everything in our universe operates in a frequency of vibrations and pulses. A constant pulse, still, then pulse, orbiting themselves but never touching. They reminded me of gnats in the air. If I looked at a darker background, I couldn't see them, but a lighter one, like the sky, I could. Peculiar is, they are unaffected by the physical elements. It was high winds, yet they remained constant, unchanged, unaltered, floating there, orbiting, pulsing. I've had a few head traumas over the years, and when I get hit in the head hard, I see this life out of my peripheral vision, everywhere except the spot I am looking directly at. Some may appear to be U-shaped, however they are transparent, and but translucent enough to be visible to the naked eye, or possibly third eye at this point. I fixed upon this gaze and in wonderment at the new world found around me. I spotted one small cluster, slightly bigger than the rest, that never moved, until I physically noticed it. Once I tried to focus directly on it, it would jerk away lost into the millions of smaller bubbles. After many failed attempts, I was able to lock onto my newfound project, the direct center of my pupil. Once locked into the gaze and looking inside of this cluster, it began to enlarge, pulsing. Each pulse was a larger image, all translucent but definitely there. With each enlargement came an adrenaline rush like that of a roller coaster. When it took over all of my vision, I was so adrenaline stacked. It felt like I just jumped out of a plane. Then I blinked and lost everything. Surely I was about to see inside of myself if I could have hung on. I must not blink to be able to see this newfound dimension. Imagine looking into space, at the stars. I blink. It shuts the shutter on my camera and resets the focus. I'm back at square one. The longer I keep my shutter open, the more and farther I see. It hurts, and tears roll down my face. But once I passed the first 3 tears, I was golden. I lasted over an hour without blinking for my first time ever. A fellow spirit suggested a dark room for my meditation purposes. This is where I turned my 5-foot closet into a vast universe, woven together with translucent prisms of soft light. Once inside of my eye, no blinking. I noticed that I had to remind myself that my eyes were open. It was more comfortable at this point to keep them open. To close them and keep them shut required effort. Leaving them open was easy. Inside of a soft glow, I was able to see inside and around. I witnessed a star inside each prism of light. I think of prisms as squares. These were not. They were round, soft fibers. When I ran my hand around the air, I was left with soft tracers. I was creating my own fibers, pulsing colors by my actions. Here's where I met fear and found myself. The search for my pupil again was the first thing on my mind in the dark room, ecstatic for the knowledge that awaited me on the other side. Once I found it, however, I noticed a face. In the dark, the size of the tiny bubbles. The more my eyes were open, the bigger it became. I had placed my back against the wall for safety measure before I began. The face became more massive. It turned into something demonic. Then a skeleton. It honestly terrified me, but I knew not to show it. With my back against the wall, I did what I always do in such situations. I jumped at it, was all I could come up with on the spot. I'm not afraid of you. I see the face inside of the face, and beyond it, it's me. Fear is product of my own imagination. At this point, I was recording my sessions via voice recorder. After I made this courageous move against myself, I realized that I was the only one there to begin with. That there were no other manifestations in this realm. I no longer felt, and will no longer fear the unknown any longer. It is now known. Unevolved minds are the only physical danger in our realm. The brightest light is that which emits from our souls. The light being so bright that when I finally located my pupil and I successfully transcended, I was blinded as if I just stared at the sun itself. The light was peeking from behind my eyes, like they were moons during an eclipse. The light barely visible at its outermost edges. Everything related to the cosmos. After glorious lights and galaxies discovered, I stopped from mere meditation. The man that stood before me was me. I opened my gaze and began to see more than myself, within myself. My face and features slightly changing. The eyes, always the same. Yet they were not my eyes. Scars appeared all over my face. A dark shadow formed over my face, and I saw the silhouette of a mushroom on my forehead, embed in the side of a prominent scar that I really have. At this point I asked the question, future, past, or present? I saw my original scars protruding from the marks of these other souls. Old, ancient, bearded. Always me, however not physically me, but my personality, my soul, all blended together. They were all clearly attached to me, and there were at least 3 faces. The last of the warriors had black rings around his eyes. Painted, perhaps. Bruised or possibly aged. I saw hatred in their eyes. Especially the dark-eyed. Hatred, violence, anguish, hurt. Once I recognized them as individuals inside of myself, I knew that this was not the first time I had seen them. The dark-eyed man when I was a boy. I remember those eyes telling me to stand up and fight in a life-or-death situation that my 15-year-old body had found itself in, against an opponent after an affair discovered. All of my souls had something in common, the 7 deadly sins. My souls looked like they could use a little peace. They stood before in the mirror as if standing to be judged. Not proud of their actions, yet damn sure not ashamed. One thing for sure, I saw victors of battles won, or yet to be won. I am a leader, a man amongst men. It is my purpose, my being. This sit down with myself changed everything. We are recycled back into each other. Man and woman elopes, spawns a child. This new DNA has no soul. only body until one established themselves into it at birth. When one spirit dies, his soul will rise to be judged. Or we rise and have the ability to move on to other worlds and other hosts, to reincarnate back at birth. Earth is the place designed by God to die. From the ashes we were made, and from the ashes we will return. This is the place where shit goes to die. We are the only mortal beings. Our purpose is to one day die. It's a fact. So with that being said, we live in hell. As we recycle back into planet Earth, we continually deplete our planet's resources to the verge of wasteland. Our hell could be a nuclear holocaust, filled with plague, famine, disease, or it could be the beach in Hawaii. The choice is ours as a people, as a divine spirit. It is our mission to prefabricate the walls we find ourselves in to promote healthy living amongst our people. The wars we face today are not biblical. They are merely us doing what we cannot do, getting along. World peace would be the only answer. Instead of nations, brothers. One family helping another family out. All citizens of planet Earth. All spirits of this world and possibly others, creating life for life. We, our own creators. It is overwhelming that we are but ants on a molehill. The possibility that once released from this fleshly host, our spirit is released into whatever form we may choose, wherever in the cosmos we may choose, if we are lucky enough to have a choice. However, we are here for a reason. To evolve our minds to a higher level of enlightenment. To help our brothers and sisters across our lands find a more holistic and healthy approach to life as we know it. To start turning hell into a metropolis. We are one spirit, but many souls, infinite within ourselves. The mortal body dies. It is its purpose. The soul is eternal and immortal, and thus recycles into an available host, baby or organism. Reincarnation, for lack of a better word. I do not believe that animal spirits and humanoid spirits commingle. They do coexist as the very essence of life itself, and may partner to achieve happiness and a common goal. The question remains, are they the same soul regenerating into ourselves until our time of punishment is done? We were created in the image of our Maker, yet there are other makers as well. A more holistic lifestyle must be realized, and a planetary treaty should be reached to achieve the next stages of life. No longer countries and governments against each other, but brothers of the same planet, living in harmony with each other. More alternative options for Phil would be a great start. If we stop robbing our planet of the very life she provides, we would see a new growth and a new age of mankind.